Okay, for Tuesday, Bible lesson is cleansing the temple. So on your sheet, this sheet would be posted on Google Classroom. It'd be this section here. This is where you illustrate, draw a picture, and this is where you'd have the notes. Okay, here is the passage, Mark and Luke, and it's talking about cleansing the temple. It was a lucrative business to do a couple things in and around the temple. If you look here, if I bring that into the screen, this would be the Temple Mount in the time of Jesus. This is the Herodian built temple. Herod built this one. It was bigger than Solomon's, but you had this courtyard. You had several layers of courtyards. You had a spot inside the temple for the chief priest, and then another spot for the priests themselves, then certain male priests, and then there's a temple of the women, and then temple just for Jews out here. And then out in the outer rings, you had spots where Gentiles who had converted to Judaism who would get to worship. And you can imagine they come from hundreds of miles away themselves, because if you're a good Jew, you make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem during this whole Passover week. And you come there, I'm sure if you're thinking about it, you're walking from 500 miles away, you see the Temple Mount way up ahead, you get there, you get closer and closer, and you get to just about out here, okay? But you don't get any closer than that because you're a Gentile, and you would defile it if you got any closer. In fact, there were inscriptions right here that said, pass this point at your own risk. Like if you're a Gentile, it could mean the death of you. In fact, they've uncovered two of those. One was part of a wall, and someone did a remodel and found it, and I think they had another one. But there's two of that still exist that says basically you can't go beyond this point. And so the Gentiles worshiping out here, they've come from a long ways away. They're new to Judaism maybe, and they just want to be close. They want to worship. But they can't worship because out there is where all the commotion's happening. What commotion? Well, that's where the Jews are making a big business out of taking people's money, the currency that they're using, maybe some Roman coins, maybe some whatever coins from somewhere else, and exchanging your money for their money. Well, what's their money? Well, you can't have a coin with like Caesar's image or some other image go into the offering plate for the temple. It's a coffer, but because that would be a graven image going into the temple, and that was no good. So what you did is you changed your money for temple money, okay? But what the Jews would do is, let's say you came in with $100 of certain Roman coins, and they'd say, and normally that $100 of Roman coins should be worth, let's say, 100 temple coins. But you've come a long ways and they know that they got you. Kind of like if you buy a hot dog while you're at a Seahawks game, they got you inside there and they just jack up those prices. They say, oh, you got $100 worth of, Roman coins. I think that's worth 10 temple coins. Like, what? And you're like, well, I'll go to a different money changer then, okay, where they're exchanging money. And they're like, I'll give you 9. And so they kind of have a big deal together where they don't, they keep the prices low, so they get more Roman money and give out less temple money. So they were running a racket there. And then they do the same thing with animals. Let's say you walked 500 miles there with your lamb that you were going to sacrifice on behalf of your family. And you come in, and the Jews that are working there are like, you're not going to sacrifice that lamb, are you? That thing looks like it's in tough shape. You're going to come all this way and sacrifice that ugly looking lamb? Here, why don't you guys give me that lamb, and I'll give you a temple lamb, a blessed lamb. See, look at this one. And then they charge you more for that. I mean, you don't want to come all this way and kind of do a half-hearted, sacrifice. So they guilt you into spending more money and buying one of their lambs. Just a total racket. Now, what they do, they don't tell you this, but they take your lamb, they might feed it a little bit, and then the next sucker that comes in, hey, we got this lamb, you don't want to sacrifice your lamb, and it's actually yours. And they just flip it and turn it around and make money off yours. So it was just a whole money-making scheme, and they were doing that in the spot where the Gentiles were supposed to worship. And when Jesus comes in and he sees not only are they a den of robbers ripping people off, they're doing it in the Lord's house where people are trying to worship. And that was his biggest gripe, that they were messing up the worship of these people. So if we're going to take notes, now mine looks a little bit different, but it'd be the second box. So it'll be for right there. That's where you'd write this. Taking on such a lucrative, that means lots of money, such a lucrative enterprise is dangerous. Adding to it is the fact this took place right outside the temple where there were lots of eyes of Pharisees, teachers of the law, and priests, and anyone else who would benefit from this big business. They might all be watching him. And the big thing is he was really upset by how these people were messing up the worship of these other people. Okay? Math today, 48, is about subtracting mixed numbers and having to borrow. So in this case, let's say 5 and 1, that's a 3, minus 2 2/3. Okay, you can't go 1/3 minus 2/3, so you borrow from the 5, making it a 4, and you bring 1 over in the form of a fraction that matches the denominator. So you're bringing a 3/3 this time, which would turn this 1/3 into 4/3. 4/3 minus 2/3 is 2/3. 4 minus 2 is 2. Okay, there's a couple practice set ones in there too. But I know I'm doing this kind of quick, but hopefully this helps out for Tuesday.